Good afternoon. My name is James Corcoran. Today I will be presenting my AP African American Studies research project. I will be talking about my thesis statement, which is religions like Christianity and Islam have all served major roles in the development of African American culture and the experiences of African Americans in the United States. The first religion to discuss is African spiritualism. Religion shaped African American culture from the moment enslaved Africans arrived in the Americas. Many of the first enslaved people brought deep spiritual traditions with them, including worshiping their ancestors, sacred music, and rituals tied to nature and healing and magic. Even under the brutal conditions of slavery, Africans found ways to secretly maintain these practices. According to the National Museum of African American History and Culture, these invisible institutions became crucial for survival and solidarity, especially when enslavers banned African religious customs. These secret worship spaces weren't just religious, they were cultural lifelines, keeping African identity alive and well while everything else was stripped away from them. This preservation effort was an early foundation for uniquely African American cultural traditions like spirituals, storytelling, and folk healing. The next religion to discuss is Christianity. Christianity was a double-edged impact on the African American community. On one hand, slaveholders used religion as a tool of control, preaching obedience and submission. Sermons were manipulated in black churches to convince Africans that suffering was God's plan. But enslaved Africans also reinterpreted Christianity in their own way, focusing on biblical stories of liberation, like Moses leading the Israelites out of bondage. According to Pew Research Center's 2021 study, 78% of Black Americans today identify as Christian, showing that Christianity was integral to the Black identity. Moreover, Christianity has become a source of resistance. Songs like Go Down Moses were more than just spirituals as they discussed methods of escaping slavery. Later on, after slavery, black churches became community centers for organizing abolition efforts and the civil rights movement of the 20th century. Leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. used the language of Christian justice to demand social change. The next religion to discuss is Islam. Islam has also had power over the African community in shaping their culture, especially in the 20th century. While about 2% of Black Americans today identify as Muslim, that number is double the national average, which is 1%, thanks to the Pew Research Center in 2021. This reflects the growing importance of Islam, especially through movements like the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam emphasized self-reliance, racial pride, and the resistance to white supremacy. Malcolm X, one of the most influential black leaders, converted to Islam and used it to both critique American racism and cultural assimilation. According to Jacob Olopana's 2021 article in Religion Compass, Islam offered many African Americans a way to reconnect with the broader African and global identity that Christianity in America often suppressed. Islam was and still is a form of cultural reclamation, though some critics argue that it sometimes promoted separation instead of racial unity. Today, religion continues to shape African American culture, both preserving and creating tradition. According to the PRRI's 2021 survey, 65% of Black Protestants say that religion is very important in their lives, compared to just 35% of the general U.S. population. Faith influences music, art, and political activism, and even family structures within the Black community. However, there's a growing trend towards religious diversity and even secularism among younger Black Americans, suggesting that while religion built much of their culture, future generations may forget it. In conclusion, religion in its various forms has been the most important factor in the development of the African American community. Any questions?
There are actually 3 questions for you.
Wonderful.
Select one of the sources you used and explain why you chose this source to include in your project.
My source, the most important source I found that it was the Pew Research Center study in 2021 titled Faith Among Black Americans. I chose it because it was the most up-to-date source I could find that detailed statistical data of how many Black Americans were religious and what religions they believed in. And it's a trusted center for research, and I believe that would represent this project perfectly.
All right, good. Identify the source that most deepened your understanding of your topic and explain in what ways added depth to your understanding of this topic.
I chose the National Museum of African American History and Culture's article, Religion and Black Power, as it dived into the sides of Black history that are only shown in courses like AP African American History and not just US history. And it showed more about the slave trade and brutal conditions, and it helped me understand better the African spiritual roots that are involved in this project.
Explain how excluding one of your sources would have weakened your argument.
The article from PRRI, which was titled The Importance of Christianity to Black Americans, would have weakened my argument because it provides evidence about how Christianity specifically created spaces for community organization and resistance. Without this source, I would not have had much information on Black Christian churches, as I would have no other experience with them. Thank you.